Thank you for your time. I appreciate you being kind to me. And I'm going to turn it over to Tony.
Hello? Okay. I'm pretty loud. Can you guys hear me in the back? Yeah? Okay. So I'm going to use the microphone only. Okay. Okay, we'll use the microphone. Okay. You might have figured by now that this is not going to be your normal session that you have in a serious conference like this, right? Okay. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming. I shook as many hands as I could. But as you can see, we have a full room, which is fantastic. I'm particularly proud because the other session going on right now, or one of the other sessions, is a game that gives out CE credits and money. So, all of you guys, either, the doors have now been locked. The doors have now been locked against fire code. You guys understand that this is a big issue for our industry and that something has to be done. So that's why you're here. Or, alternatively, you're one of the 50 or 100 people that I badgered, both in person and on Twitter, about coming. So either way, thank you for being here. I really hope you'll get something out of it. Okay, hold on. We are going to be doing some surveys, okay? And so I know that you're all very polite, and most of you have put your phone away. Take your phone back out, take it out of airplane mode. We'll be using that a little bit, okay? The way that the surveys work is you text the keyword to 22333, okay? For the baby boomers in the audience, which I know are a lot of them, look for the millennial next to you. If needed, to help you do it. But please participate. It'll be part of the fun, okay? So the first question is, what do you think of my outfit today? Okay? So if you think that my outfit is ridiculous, text awful. Okay? If you think that it's a little out there, text weird. If you really care about what I'm gonna say, you don't really care what I'm dressed like, then send no prob. And if it is epic, which I know it's only a couple of the millennials are going to think it's epic, then send love it. Okay. Okay. If anybody hasn't understood how to do this, or if you can't see the code, don't be afraid to ask. What's that? Oh, and thank you for reminding me. Please live tweet this event. Okay? At this point, you know what? Hashtag CPCU 14. Okay? And if you want to mention me, at Tony Canas, number 4. Okay? Wow. We keep getting votes. Okay. That's good. That's good. Also, do we have any Nationwiders in the audience? Any Nationwide? Anybody from Nationwide? Only one guy? 2, 3? Okay? Okay. Sadly, I am no longer with Nationwide Ally. I still love the company. Hope to be back maybe someday. They really did good for me. I hope that you guys are active on Yammer. Okay, Yammer is Nationwide's in-house social network, which I really, really miss. Okay, so please Yammer about this and mention that Tony from Yammer was the one leading this session. Put a picture of how I dressed. It'll cause a few heart attacks around the office. Okay, so it looks like we're tied between a little out there and you guys are really open-minded. You care about my ideas and not my outfit. I love that. That really melts my heart. I'm still good with that one. A little out there was the goal, and I'll talk a little bit about that towards later in the presentation. So it was very much on purpose. I do know how to dress. If you add me on LinkedIn, you'll see my good professional, which is how I look at most days. Okay, going back to the presentation. Okay, so what we're talking about today is a generation that is a little different from generations of the past. Okay, and the slides won't have a lot of words. It'll be mostly pictures. Really, I'm just talking about something that I'm passionate about. The slides are really to kind of relax your eyes a little from this really, really bright outfit. Okay. For those of you baby boomers, when you were born, chances are that you went home in a car in a parent's arms, probably your mom's arms. Okay. And so not in a seat in the back, tied up in your mom's arms. And this car probably had a metal dash, right? And if your parents really loved you, if they really loved you, they probably cracked open the window while they smoked. I'm 31, I obviously don't remember those times, but that's what I heard, right? Needless to say, my generation, and I'm an old millennial, I'm kind of on the edge of millennial and Gen X, depending on the demographer. My generation had a very different childhood, right? And throughout the session, baby boomers, please, I want you to remember two things. Number one, the reason that you're here is for us to tell you that you cannot retire. Because we are not ready. The industry is not ready to lose you, okay? If you follow the action items later in the presentation, which is really what the heart of this is about, we'll give you your permission to retire back, okay? And number two thing that I want you to remember is that you raised us, right? Your kids who are somewhere in our generation are driving some other industry nuts, right? So you raised us. So keep that in mind as we go through this. So let's take another quick survey. Which generation are you in? And that includes the years. Okay? Which generation are you in? Are you a traditionalist from 1922 to 1945? A baby boomer from 1946 to 1964? A Gen X from 1965 to 1980? Or one of my millennials from 1981 and from 82 to 2000? Or if you were born after 2000, I am so proud of you for being here today. I will give you my card. We are going to become Facebook friends, and I will mentor you. Because you have made a really good decision. Okay? And in this particular survey, I can tell you that the millennials will be overrepresented compared to the reality of our industry and to the reality of our CPCU society. The reason they're overrepresented is because, number one, they have no trouble doing this and they enjoy doing it, right? Number two is because I've spent the last 3 or 4 days that I've been here running around with the red coat, a little better dressed, but with a red coat, telling every millennial I found, I really, really, really need you in this session. Because I need you to back me up. Okay? So let's see what we look like. Actually, we have a lot of millennials here. In the industry, the reality of this survey is that something like 65% of the industry is baby boomers. And based on those years, I'm not good at math, but based on those years of birth, the last, and actually, that should have said 1964, not 65. The last, oh, never mind, 1964 is good. The last baby boomer is turning 50 by the end of this year. 50. Okay? And remember, they're a large part of our industry. Okay. Another quick survey, and who voted early? Okay. I just cleared it out. Okay. Okay. How many years of insurance experience do you have? Myself, I have 5. And I've loved every minute of it. Okay? How many years of insurance experience do you have? And again, we might get a little bit of a skewed sample because the baby boomers who have been around for 10, 15, 20 years in this industry are unlikely to actually participate in the survey, right? But what I've seen in the industry, and I've worked at 3 carriers at this point, at several offices of those carriers, 4 cities, 5 cities, 4 states, a lot of different roles. I've been through underwriting, claims, finance, sales. And what I've seen is a lot of people with 20, 25, 30 years in the industry. And a lot of times in the same company. And that is awesome. And that is what we have. We have a lot of people who have been really loyal to our industry and their companies. And now we're transitioning to a very different group of people who are very unlikely to have the same type of tenure, at least in a company. Okay, one more. How much longer are you planning on working full time? Okay, so if you're planning on retiring in the next 0 to 5 years, text Golf to 22333. If you are planning on retiring in the next 6 to 10, text Cadillac. By the way, that particular keyword, random, it shows, I just could not find one that wasn't taken. That made sense. If you're going to stay here for another 11 to 15 years, then send 10 to 15 should be 11 to 15. And for those of you who are staying for more than 16 years, that's long time. Again, we have the millennials overrepresented because they all vote. Okay. By the way, I have never done a presentation with live serving. I thought about it yesterday? No, day before yesterday. The presentation for this was due about a month and a half ago. So there was a little movement there to make it happen. Okay, so apparently we have a lot of baby boomers who are going to work into their 90s. What I told you we couldn't retire, I am so happy that really, you guys, you baby boomers, you guys have a lot of skills that we don't have. Okay, my favorite one is long division. And since I'm actually an older millennial, I can write cursive. The kids, my handwriting is awful, but I can write cursive. I'd rather type. But the kids that we're bringing in today from college, they can't write cursive. So we have things like you have a millennial working for you, right? And you have a conversation with him. And please back me up if you have been in a situation like this one. You have a conversation with him, and at the end of the conversation, it is clear that he has no idea what you were trying to communicate. Okay? So you pull out a paper pad and write him a note, a memo, in cursive, which you can't read. Okay. Luckily, we do have some Gen Xers in the industry. Okay? And so the millennial will go to Gen Xer and be like, what is this? Get it translated, right? And now that he knows what you were trying to say, he's a professional and he wants to reply to his boss. So he sends you a text message. Right? That is what's happening. That is the problem that we're trying to solve. Okay. Let's see if I do this one right now or not. Okay, yes, one more. Millennials only. You're the only ones that are voting anyway, but millennials only. In one word, it can be any word you want, describe what you thought of our industry before you worked here. Okay? And if you're one of the student members and you haven't sent it in yet, if you haven't sent the text yet, describe what you thought of our industry before somebody approached you about it. And by the way, I am so glad that Invest and that my path exists now, because that is exactly what we need. And it's exactly, it being an industry effort, is exactly what had to happen, and I am honestly impressed that it is actually happening. So I'm very, very happy to. By the way, whoever sent that piece, if I don't get invited for next year, I'm going to assume that it was that and not the dress. Okay. So, by the way, those.
That's my keyboard. It's not
Okay, 22333. Okay. I wasn't sure if this one was going to work, but.
Is it as one thing, or do you have a space between?
There can be no spaces. Anyway, I think the point was well made, and I think that they made it well with the previous speakers. Kids think that our industry is boring, and I don't have a survey for this one. I didn't make it, but it was asked earlier. Nobody grows up wanting to work in insurance. It just historically, unless your dad's an agent, historically it hasn't happened. Myself, I'm the biggest insurance nerd I know, and I love this industry. I'm going to stay in it for the rest of my career. I'm here by committee. Probably going to have 35 jobs during that time. But I didn't grow up wanting to work in insurance. It just doesn't happen. At least today it doesn't happen. Okay? Historically, people fall into insurance by accident, right? All generations. The difference is that the previous generations fell into insurance by accident, and they stayed because they're loyal and because they found great careers. And those two things have changed a little for my generation. And we'll talk later about how they have changed. Okay, so let me go back to the PowerPoint. I don't know if I still need to tell this story because I think it's clear. But when you turn 18 as a baby boomer, your parents probably, was something like this. Your parents met you at the door, and they were together because they were married. And they said something like, "We love you. We are so proud of you. But you are 18 now, so go to college, join the military, get married, get a job. Just get out of here." Right? It's not that they don't love you. That is just the way things were done at that time, right? Yes, sir.
My parents gave all of us suitcases. High school graduation, we had a set of luggage. Who else here?
You don't get sent the luggage anymore when you graduate high school, because then you have something to put stuff in to come back.
Oh, okay. Okay, and did everybody hear her? You don't get that anymore when you graduate high school, because then you have something to carry your stuff when you come back. Yeah, but it's the boomerang. Yeah. Your parents loved you, I'm sure, and I'm going to use that example of the suitcase. I had never heard that. Okay, when we turned 18, our experience went something like this. Our parents met us at the door. They made a special appearance for the occasion because they were probably not married. And they said, "Tony, we love you. We are so proud of you. But you're 18 now. And as long as you're in college, we will continue helping you out." Right? So that's pretty different. So when the baby boomers had that at high school, 80 million baby boomers ran into the working world, into college, into the military, and they outworked everybody else. And they are still, today, outworking everybody else. Okay? Us, we went to college, sometimes for a 7-year associate degree. I did mine in 4, so my bachelor's in 4, so I'm proud. Because I thought I was resident at the time, so I couldn't get a student loan, and my parents made it very clear that they would pay for 4. So I feel like I left the party at night. But and most of us graduated with $30,000, $40,000 of student loans, even with the parents' help, because college, just for the reference, increased about 1,120% between 1980 and today. That's not part of the presentation, but it's an interesting kind of fact. Basically, working with different generations, and today, it's the first time in the US history where we have 4 generations working together. That is why this is so difficult to manage, okay? And it's like working with a different culture. There is because we grew up in such different ways, there is a story from a business book, and I can't tell you which one, because I'm a big reader, and I don't have a good memory. But somebody might recognize it and let me know which book it was. So there's a story of a speaker, like myself, probably better dressed, who got invited to speak in Japan. He's American, so this American goes to speak in Japan. He does his talk, and afterwards they ask him how it went. And he says, "Oh my God, it was awful. They fell asleep." And his Japanese host very politely informed him that they did not fall asleep. The Japanese close their eyes when they're paying attention. Okay? Today, so he actually did really well. They were paying attention. Today, it's a little different. We are like a different culture because we grew up in such a different setting than you guys did. When you see somebody on their phone, they might be distracted in text messaging. They might be taking notes from the meeting. They might be live tweeting the meeting, which is what I hope a lot of you are doing right now, and Yammer. So keep that in mind. It's a matter of realizing those differences. That's what's really going to get us through this. Okay. I saw this number just last week. This is from a brand new book that came out last week called Becoming the Boss. I highly recommend it. I can't remember the author right now, but she has been working with the Hartford. Anybody from Hartford? A couple people from Hartford? Okay. Good job, Hartford. It appears, based on what I've seen in the market, that Hartford is way ahead of the game when it comes to retaining the millennials. They're really focusing on it. It's a program that is called Tomorrow at Work. The spokesman from that program, who has never worked in insurance, wrote this book, which is called Becoming the Boss, and it's meant for millennials on how to transition to becoming leaders. That's where this stat came from. So 63.3% of American executives are retiring in the next 5 years. Again, this number is fresh as of last week. Okay, the CPCU society is very mature. It reflects our industry really well. This picture is also really fresh from the general session. I noticed it in 2011. I noticed it in 2011, but I didn't say anything. And I wasn't sitting close enough to take a picture. This year, I was there an hour ahead of time because I wanted to see Mike Johnson. I missed out on him once before at Nationwide, about a year and a half ago. I wasn't there in time, like a good millennial. And I got to see him from the cafeteria and the big screen, and didn't get to see him in person. So this time, I was the first person in line, about an hour ahead of time. And in fact, I think my companion in the line might be here. I think I saw him. So this time I was sitting close enough that I was able to take this picture, and it has not changed. That's what CPCU society looks like, at least our leadership. As you can see, and the average CPCU age, that's based as of April this year. I didn't ask for an updated number, 52 years old, which is one of the reasons why young CPCUs, you are a hot commodity. And you're going to start getting a lot of attention for that. As you can see, they're a very diverse group. Now, this is the real reason I'm getting mad at here. They're a very diverse group. Some of them wear glasses. Some of them have... What's that?
They have different colored ties.
They have different colored ties. I hadn't thought of that one. Some of them have more hair. Okay? And the funniest one, in my opinion, is some of them are not CPCUs, or at least they didn't raise their hand for the swearing. Either way, I'm not saying that it's bad. What I'm saying is that it looks bad. And it's a turnoff to those of us who don't look that way, right? And I know many of my younger counterparts noticed, because we chatted about it quite a bit offline. So this is kind of what our industry looks like. By 20, okay, did everybody go to see The Futurist yesterday? Yeah. Okay, I loved it. Now, I'm a techie and I'm an insurance nerd and I live in the Bay. So I was aware of most of those things, except for the self-repairing materials. I didn't know that one. But what I loved about it is that I hope it'll wake the rest of the group up as to what we're facing as an industry. Because you might not be seeing it on a day-to-day basis unless you're a giant nerd like myself. Okay, so this slide should scare you as much as his speech should have scared you. Okay? By 2020, 50%, that's half, those will be like myself who kept the math, 50% of our industry is going to be millennials. Oh, excuse me, 50% of the workforce in the US is going to be composed of millennials. 50%. Okay? Our industry will probably be even more millennials because of the number of retirements coming up. Okay. We already did the millennial survey. Okay, and we already went through all that. The reason I'm skipping through all those, you already saw them, and the reason they're out of order is because like a good millennial, I changed the presentation last second
Meaning you're adaptable.
to the near heart attack of my co-presenters. Thank you so much for still presenting. Okay, so here we go. Have you found yourself thinking something like this? Or saying something like this? They have to pay their dues, right? Those darn kids, they have to pay their dues. I pay my dues. Well, the whole idea of this presentation is to help you realize that we want to pay our dues. We really do, honestly. We just need to learn how to do it. The problem, one of the problems, is that the entry-level jobs today for a new college grad coming into our industry is very different from the entry-level role that the baby boomers started at. The typical, quintessential entry-level role in insurance 20 or 25 years ago was something like a multi-lines claims adjuster inside, something like a personal lines and farm underwriter, and something like a management training type of program. Those were really, really great jobs where you could really pay your dues and you could really grow and you could really learn. And the entry-level roles today are very different. And I really want you to understand this. I had a VP who talked to the nationwide Gen-Y group, which I ran for a while, and he talked about how when he started, he was a little old, and I'm quoting, little old personal lines and farm underwriter in the Lincoln, Nebraska Allied office. And what amazed me is that job today it's not an entry-level job. It takes years to get there. It really does. For a nerd like myself, who ran through CPCU and 10 other designations, it took me a couple of years. But for the average kid that's coming into our industry, at a company like Nationwide, they might be in the industry 5 or 6 years before they can go for that type of role. So the entry-level role today looks something like this. It's a call center or a processing center. Remember, this kid probably has a college degree. In fact, between 2008 and 2012, when they had no other place to go, the big carriers, Nationwide, State Farm, Liberty, etc., hired thousands and thousands and thousands of young college kids with student loans who came into our call centers for a job that is designed for high schoolers. And those call centers, a lot of the time, I can't speak for every call center, but a lot of the time, they get treated like fifth graders. They are not allowed, their time is heavily managed. They are not allowed to participate in a lot of development activities. They're not allowed to be away from the phone. And I don't want to use Nationwide for every example, because I really do love the company. At Nationwide, their mandatory team meetings count against their time on the phone, just the same as being in the bathroom. They're not allowed to use their cell phone while at their desk. And they are not allowed to access Facebook in their work computer, even though the company doesn't block it. We tell our call center reps not to, that they're prohibited from using it. Well, this gets made it to college using Facebook every day, right? And not only that, we can't prohibit it because even if we blocked Facebook on the work computer, they have it on the phone. And even if we prohibit them from having their phone on their desk, they'll leave because that is how important it is for them to have it. So the point that I want to make is when you think to yourself, you have to pay your dues. We want to pay our dues, but please keep in mind that the job at which most of us are starting is very, very different from the job in which you started. And those jobs have very little visibility above as to the awesome industry that you can get to if you survive those roles. So what we're trying to do, and the advice that I'm going to give you on the action items I'm going to give you, are all about how to bridge that gap. I know we can't change the industry back to what it was. I know that we can't get rid of jobs like this, and we can't go back to multi-lines, claims adjusters. We can't go back to the more expensive way of doing things, doing a lot of it on the field kind of thing. We can't. Our expense ratio doesn't allow it. Not in this heavy competitive environment that we're in today. What I'm saying is, that's fine. Let's bring them into those call centers. But afterwards, let's make sure that they grow here and that we don't lose them. And when we lose them, we don't lose them. Nationwide doesn't lose them because we're mutual. we lose them to another industry. And they won't come back when we need them 10 or 15 years on the road, because their perspective of insurance is a call center with no future. So that's what all the action items are about. Most of them are low cost or no cost options, ideas, little things that should make them feel more welcome. And we'll have some man on the street type participation from the younger members of the crowd to see if they agree with me that those things would be useful. And by the way, nothing that I mentioned today is a Tony Canas idea. I'm just a janitor who reads too much. All of this comes from somewhere else. I just put it together and applied it to our industry. Okay, so we talked about loyalty earlier. That's one of the reasons that the baby boomers and even the Gen Xers stay in the industry, because they're loyal, right? So the question was asked recently, and it was mentioned in this book I was talking about that came out last week. I can't remember who did the survey, but a survey was done nationally and asked millennials whether they are loyal employees, and asked HR representatives, most of them baby boomers, whether millennials are loyal employees. And I won't survey you guys today, but the results came in something like this. Millennials, 82% say they are loyal employees. Okay? Any guess as to what the HR number was?
19%.
19, 18? Huh? Okay, so we have some optimists in the crowd. This one blew me away, and I'm an optimist too. HR said 1% of millennials are loyal employees. But we see ourselves 82% as loyal. So there is a giant disconnect there. So basically, I'm gonna give you the secret. This is maybe the best thing I want you to remember from this. The reason for this number being so different is that we have different definitions of loyalty. Okay? For the baby boomers, loyalty means I stuck around the company or at least the industry for 20, 30 years until I got my gold watch and my pension. That's loyalty. And then you see a kid like myself, 31 years old, 5 years in the industry, 5 jobs, 3 companies. I can't even keep count anymore. 4 cities, 5 states. And it's hard to realize how somebody can be considered loyal. And by the way, I swear I'm staying at this job for the next 3 years, which is a very long-term commitment. Okay, so the reason for this difference in meaning is because for millennials, we define loyalty as while we were there, we worked hard for you, not for how long we stayed. Okay, so if I stay, so it happens, and I haven't heard a story in the insurance industry, but it's happened in other industries where a kid will come in, will work for 6 months, and after 6 months, get an offer from a different company, leave, and then call his old boss for a reference. The boss, of course, goes, we didn't even finish training you, right? That's what we're trying to bridge here. That's what we're trying to bridge. At the same time, you got to remember that those same millennials are working all-nighters for Facebook and Google. Those same kids. How come they can get them to work all-nighters and we can't get them to stick for long enough to finish training? And the big thing, of course, is if we don't fix this, where will your future leaders come from? Because right now, I am very, very lucky. I had some really good advice early on. I've had some really great experience. I'm a young CPCU. I am in prime position, and so are all of you young CPCUs that are here today. You're in a great position for the rest of your career. But you're not enough. We need a lot more of you. And we can't just wait to see who survives the call center. It's the truth. We can't just wait to see who survives, right? Because that's how we used to do it. We need to help grow them, and that's what we're trying to address today. Okay, so millennials are entering the workforce with more education than previous generations. We're the most educated generation ever. Also, the most in debt for our education. With much less work experience. This one is the less known one. And with much less life experience. So the average baby boomer came into the industry with a college degree, with several years of work. Part-time work, during college kind of thing, several years of work, and married at 23, maybe with a kid already. Whole different life experience than your average millennial coming today who maybe has never worked, who focused during high school and college on having 100,000 extracurricular activities because that's what he thought he needed in order to succeed in the future. That's what he was told he needed. And we are deferring marriage, we're deferring buying a house, some are even deferring buying a car or giving it up altogether. So we, quite simply, are not getting are not getting into the industry with the same experience that you're expecting. So one of the big points, and I talked about it a little bit, I'll talk about it later, it's fine. Okay. This one's a fun one. Okay. So, did I make a survey for this one? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. At what age do you believe that a kid becomes an adult? Text high school without a space to 22333 if you think at 18 kids become adults. Text frat, as in fraternity, if it's at 21. Text rental, and of course you guys are insurance guys, so you know why 25. If you think at 25, and text Peter Pan if you think at 30. And presenting today is a 31-year-old with no kids, not a homeowner, not married, so I fit that Peter Pan description fairly well, except I haven't heard about insurance and I do work full time. Okay, so the results are coming in pretty high on 25. Does that shock the baby boomers in the audience? 25? Okay, we've got a mature group of Gen Yers here, that's why they're here, right? They not only they became to the industry, they became CPCUs. They're a very mature group and a very go-getter group. The survey, done at a bigger level nationally, found that millennials think that they become adults at 30 years old. So that 22-year-old you're getting right out of college, he does not see himself as an adult for the next 8 years. He has no previous work experience. He's not anywhere near buying a house. He doesn't have his college degree, maybe with a double or triple major. So it's a whole different world we're dealing with here. The second question, and I don't have a survey for this one, is how long do you have to be at a job before considered long term? So this question was asked in that same survey to millennials across the country. And the answer shocked me, although my resume reflects that it's true. Any guesses?
2 years.
3 years, 2 years. Again, we have very mature millennials here. What was that? 1 year. 1 year, right? Okay. You're telling me, David. Yes. David, thank you for volunteering. You're telling me, congratulations, David, you're listening. How old are you, David?
34.
Okay. You're an adult.
Yeah.
You're telling me that if you stay at a job for 1 year, from what? Oh my God. That call center was really awesome, and that's not what the session's about, but I'll talk about it a little bit. Because that is a really awesome call center. That's close to how we should do it. David thinks that at 34 years old, so he's a little bit older than Millennial, he's in the cusp there with myself. He thinks that a 1 year long job counts as long term. Okay, baby boomers, do you guys agree? No. Do we have any baby boomers who agree? Do we have any Gen Xers who agree? No. Okay. So, interestingly, David is pretty much right on the dot. It shocked me. It really did when I saw that 11 months. Okay. Last year, when I presented the same presentation at Nationwide, or a similar one, this has actually improved a lot. I got interrupted at this point. And one of the VPs asked, you're telling me that after 11 months, they think they've been here for a long term. And it takes me 1.5 years to train them. How can we possibly make that work? And I still don't have a good answer for that one. Although what I can tell you is we need to train them a lot faster. Okay? Simple math, right? We need to train them a lot faster. But more than that, we need to really challenge them and engage them. Because I can tell you what, I did my CPCU before I finished my second year of insurance. A lot of other people have too in the last few years. Okay? It is totally doable. That kid that stayed for only 11 months, if we had, in orientation, got him interested in CPCU, and got him started in CPCU, and he would have probably stuck around, and he would have probably at least finished the 2 years so that he could finish his CPCU, and then we might have lost him from the company, but he would stay in the industry, because you're more valuable inside the industry than outside the industry once you have your CPCU. So, that's one of the secrets. Okay, thank you for participating. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're doing pretty well. And Mr. Farm Bureau that I worked with, what was your name? Dan. Dan? What's your last name? Murphy. Did you finish this year? Well, congrats to Dan Murphy for finishing. Are you still in Express Lanes? No. Okay. Good. However, that Farm Bureau call center in West Des Moines, Iowa, where I started my insurance career under Dan Burns, who got me started on CPCU. Although I think he's still sitting on 540 for 14 years, right? I don't know if he's ever finished. He was scheduled to take 540 on 9/11. And then 9/11 happened, and 14 years later, he's still trying to get ready for 540. What happened is he got promoted a couple times. He felt that he didn't need to anymore. You guys are here, so you know that even after you're finished, there's a lot to gain from CPCU. That call center is very different. When you come in, they tell you that they don't want you to stay, that they don't want you to stay there for long. We want you here for a year or two. They tell you to do AIS and AIC from day one. Orientation is fantastic. I fell in love with the industry. And what scares me is that if I had started 5 miles away in another call center that I'm very familiar with, in Des Moines, Iowa, I probably wouldn't be in the industry anymore. I would have burnt out. And if me, a giant insurance nerd with 10 designations who fell in love with the industry and plans to work the rest of his life here, if I wouldn't have made it, we have no chance with the kids who might or might not. Okay, that was just a quick. Next year, I'll see if they let me do the call center presentation. That'd be a fun one. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about what Gen Y looks for at work. Okay, and this is not according to Tony Canas. This is according to a survey that McKinsey, little consulting company you might have heard of, did for the industry. And they came back and they said, millennials look for challenging work. Do we have this in the industry? Yes. They look for the ability to make a positive impact on the world and working for a company that is not just about profits. Do we do this in insurance? Yes. They look for space to grow, or more exactly, a place where they can really grow their career. Is insurance a place where you can grow your career? People who have been here for 25 years. Yes. They look for a flexible schedule. This one's a little trickier, okay? But it is doable. As technology improves, and as you know in the company, I have a flexible schedule. I know lots of people that do. You know, you have to earn it. But it is possible. It is there. And they look for working with the latest technology. Do we have this one? Okay. Okay. We all agree. Okay. There were a couple of other factors. These were the ones I chose. The other factors, we have them all. So the point I'm trying to make is this is an industry where millennials want to work just as much as they do in technology and banking, etc. They just don't know it yet. And that is what Invest and the other one I can't remember, and my path. That is what they're doing, and that's awesome. But yes, it is an industry, so it is savable, right? It is savable. It's an industry where we want to work at. By the way, I caught the last piece of the Dilbert. The last piece, Dilbert said, but I have a laptop. And the millennial replies, welcome to 1990. Okay, so I've already given you some of the solutions. When I presented this in April, in the Leadership Summit, which is thankfully is a lot smaller, that presentation was nowhere near this one. I spent way too much time talking about what makes millennials different, and way too little on the solutions. And, right, you were there? Okay. Luckily, I learned a lesson. I had a heckler. I had people interrupted early to ask questions. I wasn't able to really get the conversation back on track. And the big question was, how do we fix it? Right? So we will spend the whole rest of the presentation on how do we fix it. Okay. And like I promised on Twitter, for those of you that followed it, most of the solutions, with the exception of high technology, most of the solutions are things that will cost the company very, very little or nothing. You can't beat that, right? Our expense ratio is already suffering enough. Okay. The first day at work for a millennial is absolutely crucial. There's a really good book called Why Size Your Business that talks about this. I love it. I recommend you all read it. The first day at work in our industry today looks something like this, in my experience, and basically this is my view. Why Size Your Business? Letter Y, Size Your Business. By a really good author, Ryan Dorsey, or Jason Dorsey, something Dorsey. He runs a company called Generational Dynamics, and he's a full-time author and speaker on generational differences and how to manage millennials. He should be the one doing this presentation. The difference is that I work in the industry, and I don't charge $25,000 a speech. Jason Dorsey, yeah. He is amazing, amazing. And if we could have him next year, I will gladly give up my spot. He should be the general speaker when Michael Johnson did this year. And I know he charged $25,000 because we tried to get him a nationwide. But they were very nice. They understood my shock when they told me $25,000. And they explained that they do have a budget alternative. Another guy, he's not a brand name, he's like the understudy, I can't understand. And he's much cheaper at $10,000 a speech. So $25,000 a speech plus the first class air ticket, plus a 5-star hotel. And even with that ridiculous price, he spoke 200 plus times in 2013. So he is in very high demand because this is a big deal. So he talks about the first day is crucial. And I love this part of the book. The first day in insurance today looks something like this, especially at a big carrier, which is where I grew up. You show up with a big class. Your computer's not ready. You don't get business cards. You might get them in a few weeks if you have a good enough job. For most of us, you're not going to get them. Okay? It's a little scary. How we should do it. How we should do it. When you show up, your computer should be ready. That requires changing a process. It doesn't cost us anything. Number two, we should reach on the door with business cards. Your business cards on your first day. Regardless of position, I don't care if you're in the mailroom. You should get 500 business cards. 500 business cards nationwide, it's probably similar in the other carriers, cost $17. Okay? He might never give one of those to a customer, because he might never deal with a customer in that job. What you're doing is you're showing him that he's 4 years in college, $40,000 of debt, and an incredible amount of extracurricular activities during high school led him to a career, not to a dead-end job, even though he's going to spend the next year or two in the call center or in processing. Okay? So you give him the cards and you say something like, what this means is that you are now part of the family. You are now part of the Farm Bureau family or the Liberty Mutual family or this agency's family. You represent us with everything you do, and we represent you. Then, later in the day, take him to see an executive. It doesn't really matter who. As high as possible is good, but take him to see an executive and have that executive say something on the lines of, it's so nice to meet you. We are so excited to have you here. I know you're going to have a great career here. Okay. The executive has no idea who it is. That's fine. That's fine. Right? But you've made him feel special. And by the way, I went a little past my joke, past the kicker in the joke. That business card that you give him, which he's never going to give to a customer, which is why you don't want to give them to, or we are not giving them to him right now. He is going to give one of those cards out, right? Who's he going to give it to? Mom. Exactly. And for something like 20 or 30% of us, right when she picks us up at work. Okay, so the first day, doing it this way doesn't cost us anything, right? You do this correctly, you probably haven't for the first year. Millennials, was your first day something like that? It was? Awesome, awesome. That's good to hear. Who are you with? USA. What was your, what was your first role in insurance?
My first role was, it was a sales role.
Sales? On the phone sales, like bottom line sales?
No, like process engineering type, how to improve the process.
Okay, so that's a little bit better job. Okay, anybody that started in the call center, was your first day like this? Was it?
I worked for USA as well. It wasn't like this, but there were no business cards. There was no executive.
Okay.
But it's not like this, but I'd say first day going to the phones can maybe feel like this a little bit because your first day you don't start on phones at USA.
Okay, well, yeah, of course. Okay, if we can make our first day look like this, I've had a first day in 3 different insurance companies, several different cities, several different jobs. Every year in July, basically, for the last 5 years, I have never had a first day like this. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my first day was exactly the opposite of this. I had business cards, I had my computer set up. I'm now a CPCU. I've been 7 years with my company, and I have never lasted a year with any other employer.
And he is with Mercury. So we're going to start. Wow. Wow. Good job, Mercury. Good job, Mercury. And of course, good job, USA. USA, fantastic company. Okay. If you can get the first day right, we're way ahead of the game. Okay, number 2, a clear and objective evaluation system. Okay? Objective is the, and clear, transparent. But objective is really the key word here. And I know that nobody here has the power, at least not by themselves, although we might have a chief underwriting officer or something. But I know you don't have the power to change the overall company evaluation system that happens once a year. But what you can do is be very, 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 very clear with your millennial as to what exactly he needs to do, not only to succeed in this job, but what he needs to do to grow to the next level. In very objective terms. Not in just get your best, or more in terms like you need to hit this number, and you need to be here for this long. And if you do CPCU, you are way ahead of that game. In terms like something that is actionable is what he needs to know. Okay? Probably can say a lot more about that one, but let's move on for now. This one is huge, 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 huge. Giving constant and honest feedback. Now, I apologize for the picture I chose because it is very positive. I am not saying give good feedback. What I'm saying is give constant and honest feedback. If it is constructive, that is fine. In fact, some of the best feedback I got was from an exceptional leader called Sandra Materi-Skilling. She hasn't finished CPCU, she's on the way. She's a nationwide finance. And she made it very clear, very, very, very clear, that while I am an excellent insurance professional and passionate, dedicated to nationwide, I am not a finance guy. Okay? I mentioned earlier I can't do math. That might have had something to do with it. Either way, Sandra's tough love pointed me in the right direction for my personality, and I'm now in sales where it's a much better match for me. That kind of real feedback, just real, constant, and by constant, that doesn't mean once a year, it doesn't mean even once a quarter, and it doesn't have to be formal. You don't have to have half an hour. It's just quick, constant feedback. We're talking weekly, okay? My generation grew up playing video games. The reason video games are so addicting is because they give you constant feedback every time you press a button on whether you did it right or not. We can't do that in real life. But we can give quick, weekly, this is what you're doing well, this is what you're not doing well. And this is how you can improve it. Constant feedback. I know it's a lot of work, but once you get to your annual review, there will be no surprises. And this is good for everybody. And you correct bad behaviors right away. Okay? At Allied, I gave this presentation, and one of the directors in the Sacramento office took my advice, thankfully, and she is a woman who's been here for a long time, had to fight her way to get to her, I think it's an ADP actually, to get to her role, fight against the guys in the industry that was very men-heavy, and she gave some feedback to a young female associate. Some tough feedback, I don't know what the actual feedback was. And the associate started crying. And then the AVP came to me and complained about the fact that I told her to give constant and real feedback. So there has to be another aspect of it, which is we have to teach our young professionals on how to take feedback. Because a lot of them have never had real feedback. A lot of them have always been told you're special, have always been told you're the best, you're amazing, and have never had any sort of critical feedback, constructive feedback. So what we did is we used a book called "Thank You for Your Feedback." Thanks for the feedback, which is great, and we use that to teach the young professional group how to take feedback. Okay. Moving from task-based to challenge-based. Tasks get boring. Okay? If you're measuring them by the number of tasks they get done in a system like e-file, those get boring. While if you give them a challenge, if you ask them to help you fix something that's broken, even though they don't have experience, if you give them the chance and you work with them, that's what Google and Facebook and companies like that are doing, other than paying very well. But that's one of the things that they're doing. We like a challenge. We want to feel like those 7 years of college and $40,000 student loan debt was for something. So give full challenges, not just count tasks. Ask for their opinion. You don't have to follow it. Yes, they know nothing about insurance, they're brand new. But asking for their opinion shows them that you care. It goes a long way. Because that's what our parents did with our generation. Our parents asked us for our opinion on a lot of stuff. Myself, my parents are divorced. I had a strong hand in deciding where we lived when my mom was buying her first home. I was maybe 10 years old. That was the case for a lot of us millennials. We have always been asked for our opinion by our parents, by our coaches, by our teachers. Ask for their opinion, even if you can't follow it, just asking for it makes sense. And then give us feedback on it. Okay. This one is the biggest one. If you're going to take one thing from today, you need to become a mentor. This is the one. If you do this one, okay? If you do this one, if you become a mentor for a millennial in your company, in your CPCU Society chapter, in fact, a non-CPCU, the CPCU is already well on the way. If you grab a call center kid who looks promising, or a call center kid who looks promising, and you become his mentor, and you help him grow into the nicer levels of the industry, we give you permission to retire. That is what we ask. That is what we need. Okay? The reason, and mentorship has always been important, but one of the reasons that it's particularly important today is because we come with such limited experience. There's a story in Jason Dorsey's book, and he talks about this kid that came to an interview at a small company, and he came in jeans, with his shirt not tucked in, not really dressed for the interview, with tennis shoes, looking kind of like I look today. Okay? And the owner of the company was going to interview him. When he came out to the lobby to get him, said, "You know what, I can already tell that you don't want this job, so let's not waste our time and let's call it quits." And the kid said, "No, I really want this job. I took 3 buses to get here. I'm so sorry I'm late. I took 3 buses to get here." And the owner said, "Okay, I'm going to be straight with you. If you come back tomorrow at 8 a.m. sharp, dressed in a suit, well dressed, you shake my hand properly when I greet you. You look me in the eye, you shake my hand confidently. You do the following 3 or 4 things, which I can't remember anymore. I promise I will hire you." Kid came back the next day, got hired, and became a solid employee. That is what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to, we need to recognize that a good employee nowadays might not look like they did when you started. Okay? And this goes back to the constant, to the objective of evaluation. If you are evaluating people on how they dress, if you are evaluating people on how much time their butt spends on the office chair, you are probably missing out on some of your best people. Because sometimes they show up dressed like this. And because we are more productive with a laptop, working whatever, than we are sitting at a chair. Basically what I'm saying is, when you're sitting at the chair, that doesn't mean you're working. I can spend 8 hours at the chair and spend all 8 hours on Facebook. Right? On the other hand, the fact that you don't see me there doesn't mean that I'm not working. You need to look at the results. And you need to tell us the things that we don't know. And they'll take a little while to figure out what we don't know. But the kid didn't know how to dress for an interview. He just hadn't had the advice. Once we got it, he was fine. And by the way, I'm not just saying we have to change the way we do it. I also give this similar talk to the young kids. I used to do it at Nationwide a lot. I do it at Sigma a lot. Whenever I have a chance. And I tell them to dress properly. Right? That's part of the advice. I tell them to make sure that you spend enough time and see that they see you there. So we're trying to bridge the gap. I'm not just saying we have to change the way we look at them. I'm also telling them to make sure that they behave in a way that you can recognize that they're good. So, just so you know. This one's a really big one. Help them see the possible career paths. So, that kid in the call center, if somebody had told them that if you get your AIC, we will give you a chance at being a low-level claims adjuster. If you get your CPCU, we will give you a chance at being a manager someday. If somebody had told them, hey, 2/3 of us are retiring in the next 10 years, and if you do the following things, you have a great future here, he would very likely stay. So help paint those career paths. Also, do me a favor. Update your LinkedIn. Show your resume on LinkedIn. Because what we do with the people we admire is we look at their LinkedIn and we try to figure out how they made it there. So if we can see how you made it there, we can see the career path you took, it'll help us figure out the career path that we might take. Since we won't be VP on year 2, like we thought we were going to. Okay. This was a big one. Assume good intentions or lack of experience. Okay. Assume that the kid that shows up wearing this just doesn't know any better. Luckily, I know better, but I wanted to make the point. That's why I'm dressed like an idiot today. So assume good intentions. Assume that when things go wrong, it's because they did not know any better. And give them the chance. Tell them what they did wrong, give them the chance to fix it. That goes all the way to the interview. McKinsey Consulting, one of the hardest places to get a job at. It pays hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's harder than getting into Harvard. McKinsey has a website, you can go see it, for their recent MBA graduates, or the MBAs that are applying, that tells them how to dress. It tells them what kind of interview questions that they're going to get. It tells them a lot of tips and hints on how to survive a very tough McKinsey interview. Because they have realized that the fact that the kid has not had that experience and that good advice doesn't mean that he isn't great. How many people might we be turning away because they show up wearing the wrong stuff? Or might we be letting rot in our call centers instead of growing them? When 10 years from now, we're really going to need them. Because they just didn't have the right advice. They didn't have the right coaching. And by the way, going back to the mentor one, you should have a formal mentoring program. Out of the top 100 places for millennials to work at based on surveys of millennials, the top 30, the one thing they have in common is not technology and high pay and being in San Francisco. The top thing they have in common is they all have formal mentoring programs. Some of them pay very little, like Teach for America. But they all have formal mentoring programs. So we should learn something from that. Is this the end? Okay. And the big one, of course, this one is not because this is a CPCU event. That's not why this one's here. This one is here because I am a CPCU fanatic. CPCU did amazing things for my career. I am so thankful to Dan Barons at Farm Bureau, who hasn't finished yet after 14 years, for getting me started with this path. I really, really am. It's done amazing things for my career, made me fall in love with this industry. Not only tell them to do CPCU, once they get CPCU, they'll stay, because they're more valuable here than they are elsewhere. That's a big one. Once they do CPCU, they'll stay. Okay? Tell everybody about the beauties of CPCU. I spent 2 years at Nationwide after I got my CPCU, 2 or 3, maybe 3, running around using every tool I had at my disposal to tell people to do CPCU. I kept track, and I started 75 people on CPCU. I don't know how many have finished, but I started 75 people by myself, without any company money, without any budget. I did use Canas, which is our company social network. But 75 Nationwiders started CPCU because I told them how awesome it is.
Tell them it's in Hawaii next year.
I use that quite a bit too. Okay? Do the same. Honestly, if you can get a couple of different people in your company to start CPCU, you're not just helping the society, you are really helping that person. You are really helping your industry and your company. I think when we talk about loyalty, I think that I am really, really, really loyal to Nationwide, even though I left. Okay? I think the biggest thing I did for Nationwide, and it's bigger than anything I could have done as a sales manager, as a claims guy, as an underwriter, as a finance person, all of which I was at one point or another, over 4 years. The biggest thing I did for Nationwide, I think, was get 75 Nationwiders started at CPCU, and hopefully they'll keep spreading it. I think that's going to make a huge difference for the company in the long term. Okay, another one that Jason Dorsey, I can't remember his name, Dorsey, suggests is make good enough not acceptable. A lot of jobs in our industry, at the big carriers especially in the call center level, have been dumbed down to the point that any high schooler can do them. Okay? Let's do the opposite. Let's really challenge them. Hey, you're in a call center right now, it's a pretty easy job, you're a smart guy with a college degree. I want you to not only do great in this call center, I want you to also pass your AINS in your first year. I want you to also get involved in Toastmasters. I want you to not only do well, I want you to do amazing. Because if you do amazing, I guarantee you are going to grow in this company and in this industry. So this one's interesting because it's kind of backwards from what you would think. We're not asking you to make things easy. We're asking you to make them interesting for my generation. And I have one last survey, and then I'll take a few questions if we still have time. I have one last survey, okay? And this one, please, just my part of the presentation, not their part. Their parts were excellent. Just for me, how was my presentation? Was it bad? Text, no dice. 2, 2, 2. Was it good? Test.
The feedback.
Correct. Exactly. Instant feedback, constant feedback. 2, 2, 3, 3, 3. Very good or well done. So you can read them. If anybody doesn't know how good, especially if you're going to go with poor, then don't want to explain how good. So I will keep that slide up. I believe that is my last slide. I have very bad memory. That is my last slide. So I will keep that up while we take some questions. Again, I don't normally dress like this. It's to make a point. I saw your hand. I'll come right back to you. I'll saw your hand first.
I recently hired a millennial. Actually, when I put out the word for the job, I had at least 4 or 5 that applied. What I put is, I said it was a finance job. I said it has Excel, it has macro, it needs macros, and I think maybe that was the thing that drew people, the millennials in there. And when I asked my person who I hired why he looked for my company, he said, or why he looked for the job, he said it was one of the top companies to work for. So if they could put that maybe in the Invest or whatever, they're looking online for like, what's in it. So if they're might be just for a good industry, it might be also a good company.
Good, definitely. Sounds like the tip to invest. And you have one.
So I'm a baby boomer, so in the years I've been leader over in HR and all kinds of departments, the feedback I've received and I've noticed is millennials don't always have the humility to accept a mentor, or they believe they already know everything. And so is the feedback part of that challenge of making people, I've seen great people want to help millennials and they push them away. So is that part of that I'm good, I've always gotten a trophy whether I won or not kind of a thing?
I'm sorry that I've had a bad experience there. Yeah, it's part of the feedback, and I really recommend not only give them the feedback, but teach them how to take the feedback. In fact, make it part of orientation. You know, give them a copy of thank you for the feedback, the book. Because yeah, at times we just don't know. And when I was young in this industry, believe me, there was a lot of stuff I thought I was doing right that I was not. It took me a while to open up. So yeah, it is what we can teach them to take the feedback. There are tools for that. We definitely need to teach them. Yes, we definitely need to teach them. And I learned that lesson the hard way when I got in trouble at Nationwide with that one. And I thought.
Well, I wanted to respond to her comment as a millennial who has a great mentor and has kind of been through that. Thank you.
So, indeed, you are correct. If I were to speak for myself, I'd say I went into my career very arrogant. Always told that I was real special. I was like, number one, I'm going to be a rock star when I grow up. Clearly, this insurance thing is just an interim. But what my mentors did for me in those first few years of my career was very gently, before there was any major feedback to give, helped me understand how I needed that perspective and kind of painted a picture of when I was doing what you're doing. These are some of the things that happened to me before I actually walked over those cliffs, before my arrogance really got me in trouble, which of course eventually it did, but they really helped humble me, helped me take broader perspective, helped me understand the more gracious side of learning, and that was a big part of the mentorship. Outside of the technical training of the job, it was just helping me understand how to be professionally, gracefully accepting of others' perspectives and ideas.
And who are you with, Carly? Femco, okay, it's not in there. And are you introducing me? Congratulations. Let's give her a hand.
So I recognize that a lot of the comparisons you made were between the millennials and the baby boomers. You know, as a Gen Xer, we grew up with a lot of the same issues that the millennials did. So I'm curious as to your take on, you know, I've seen differences in the workplace between Gen Xers and millennials, and I'm curious as to, you know, what your take is as to why there's a difference when a lot of us grew up the same way.
Okay, that's a hard one. Thank you for the question. And by the way, Gen Xers, I am sorry we felt ignored. Part of it is like always, there's just not enough of you guys. And the other part is that it's just not my area of expertise. But one thing I can tell you is that the Gen Xers are important, I should have mentioned that by the way, in being the bridge, in finding whatever similarities we do have in the way we grew up, and helping bridge the gap between the other two bigger generations. So yeah, I have no idea why you know, there's still trouble between millennials and Gen Xers.
The millennials had all these electronics since they were little, whereas the Gen Xers, they were like they made it in college or after that. So they grew up having to be a little more social on their electronics or something.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And by the way, there is definitely another issue, which I'm not an expert on, and that's not what the presentation is about, but there's definitely a generational issue, or a demographic issue, where since we eliminated a lot of male management roles, the Gen Xers don't have the same experience that the baby boomers had at their age. So I've had lots of people asking me the last couple of days, what, you know, my executive board is all retiring, and we have nobody between 35 and 45, only 35 and 50, we have nobody that can take over. And unfortunately, I can't help you with that one. I encourage one of the Gen Xers to help us with that one maybe next year. Any other comments, questions?
I'm a baby boomer who listens fast but writes slow. You said you don't need to make it easy, you need to make it what? Thank you.
Yeah, I speak fast, very fast, both Spanish and English. And a year of Toastmasters got me halfway to the point where you guys got most of what I said, hopefully. Oh, that's a good question.
I'm in generalist Gen X, and one thing that I realized in my career 7 years ago, I started insurance rating. And what effect do you see offshoring? Because a lot of jobs that I started with and some of the jobs that I just left now are being outsourced outside of the country. And that's something that will affect our industry.
That's a great question, and a scary one. I think we also yesterday with the futurist Ulrich, that the truth is, in a few years, what's the Jeopardy playing? Watson. The truth is, probably by next year, Watson can do my job. And 5 years from now, he'll probably be able to do my CEO's job. Where we fit into that paradigm is a big question. In general, so yeah, no, and there's bound to be structural changes, and as the carriers catch up in technology, there's bound to be outsourcing, and then it's already happening for sure. Yeah. And by the way, we're about out of time. Feel free to leave if you need to.
I just wanted to say that I mentor a young person in our company, and she also mentors me. We have a deal. I'll help her on underwriting and insurance issues. She'll help me on technology. And she has really taught me a lot. So it works both ways.
What's your name? Ruth. You're in company? Okay, with Arlington Rowan Company, finished in 81 CPCU. Thank you so much. Reverse mentoring can be a difference maker. I was a reverse mentor for a while. It really can be a difference maker. Like Ulrich said yesterday, it's a matter of humility, of having the humility to understand that this crazy person who dresses like a madman might have something to teach you just because he sees the world so different from you. And because he is so connected to technology and it's such a big part of his life. So yeah, absolutely. If I started seeing mentoring / official mentoring / reverse mentoring programs in the big carriers, I wouldn't have to do this speech anymore, because that would be a long way to fixing the problem. See any more takers? We are out of time officially. You are free to leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you so much. Sorry about the misunderstanding earlier.
No problem. No, we did fine.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh, and I should have said that. I've got my business cards in case anybody wants to keep in touch.
The old-fashioned business
I
card.
emailed it to the email on your card.
Okay.
If you want it anywhere else.
That's actually, yeah. AF, the same last name as Gmail.
AF, same last name.
F like Frank.
Gotcha.
Tony, good job.
Thank you.
I always love following you. I watched you.
Thank you, Mom. Did I manage to overcome the clown customer?
It worked.
Okay, good. I was afraid of that one. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. Thank you so much. I hope it makes a difference.
And my 6 years feels like 30. So definitely adds that perspective.
Yes, right here. Right. I should have said on the.
I'm going to email you because I'm working on a couple of things.
Absolutely. Now, forewarned, the email on my card is my work email, and officially, as of the moment this room is empty, I just got a new phone.
No problem. Not that big of a rush.
Yeah, I'm going to be here until 4:50. So, your girlfriend is in London right now, so it's 2 days ago, with her brother. And I'm flying to meet them, along with her sisters and a couple of boyfriends, in Brussels. We'll be in Brussels, Luxembourg, and Amsterdam. We're back to October 1st. But I am this big of an insurance nerd that I skipped the London part to be able to attend the conference.
I hear you. Just people don't understand that a lot of times you get your money on.
Thank you for coming. I hope it was
Hey,
good.
it was awesome, Tony. I liked it, man.
Thank you. I'm always more than happy to do it for other companies.
Okay, cool.
If you think anybody's interested. I cuss nothing. Sorry. Thank you. I don't recognize it. I'm like, I know that face, and I don't think I've seen it in the last couple of days. Congrats and finishes. What are you doing now with your hair? What's up, bro?
I moved here 25.
How long were you in Express? Oh, okay, yeah. It's been like 4. And the diabetes good. They do such a good job in representation. People just get it.
Yeah.
Seth, did you like it?
Loved it.
Good. Have my card. Please feel. I should have said it on the microphone. Please grab my card if you're interested. I am more than happy to continue the conversation with everybody. I am deeply passionate about it. So you got your Nationwide Columbus.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Okay, hold on.
You
You have your phone.
Absolutely.
Okay. We need a selfie together, which is going to go on Yammer. Do you have an idea how much we're doing Yammer?
I was there when it became mandatory, so
Mandatory.
we had to start posting. I came in the service center. Also, we had to.
I'll be right there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we'll see you at the social function, we gotta go.
Okay. Got
Bye,
it.
Tony.
Post on Yammer. Tag me, even though I'm no longer there. My account's
I'm
still
sure
there.
there'll be a lot of.
My account's still there. And and let me know how, like, send me a screenshot of beautiful lights. Because that is so cool. I'm so glad. So, Seth, are you going? How did you get started on CPCU? What got you there?
Actually, my former boss was at Canas.
Non-nationwide, right?
No, not nationwide. I'm in Columbus. I help out with the nationwide local chapter. We are so underrepresented in all the other.
Yes, I know, it killed me. It's amazing, it kills me. And you know the funny thing, the entire leadership passes. And they don't talk about it. From Steve Rasmussen on down. They all have it. They don't talk about it. They reward it. And once you have it, you get the trip, you get the interviews, but they don't advertise it.
No.
So I would love it if you become the next Tony Canas in the official CPCU pusher. I can train you on the conversation. Keep trying. How many people will start? Good. And if you're in trouble, you don't know what to say, I will help you train you on that. Frank, you want to say hi already?
No, I was going through emails when you were doing the hi, so I think you're just being polite and letting me keep going.
Oh, okay, yeah, probably. Or I thought I had already said hi. I'm so bad with my memory's so bad, it's amazing. Take my card.
I've got a card. I have one question.
Yes, sir.
So we have the company I work for is a huge attrition problem, and I think that part of it really is that first day thing. And we've been talking about it for a long time.